Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Thursday, the 23rd of October 2025. I'm Deborah Platt and I'm the chair of the meeting. When speaking, please do not obstruct your mouth to enable lip reading or for the use of closed captions. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that all your mobiles are switched to silent, and welcome our officers attending for items and also Councillor Bradley. So first is apologies. We've got apologies from Councillors Green, Hayden, Moss and Singh. Any others? You're deputising him. Has anybody got any declarations of interest to raise now? You can raise them later if they crop up. No? Okay, so there is no public questions, which is item 2. So item 3 is minutes of the last meeting, which was held on Thursday the 24th of July on pages 5 to 10. Are there any issues to raise from the minutes of the last meeting? Yeah, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Yes, there's just one on page 6, section 5, and the second paragraph of that section. The sentence is, there was a 19-year difference in health and life expectancy. It should read healthy life expectancy. It's probably just misheard. Thank you.
Okay. Any others? No. Okay, so if I can have a proposer for those. Thank you, Councillor Beach, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. Are we okay to accept those minutes? Yeah, great. So, item 4 is the notice of executive decisions. The latest notice of executive decisions is available via the link on the agenda to the Council's website. Does anybody have any comments or questions regarding those decisions? Okay, so the recommendation is that the notice of executive decisions be noted. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah, brilliant. Item 5 is an update from the representative on the Lancashire County Council Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which is a very long title. We've got Councillor France with us. Thanks, Councillor France.
Thank you very much, Chair. And yes, you're absolutely right. I'm reporting on the meeting of the 24th of September of Health and Adult Services Scrutiny. And at that meeting, there were basically 2 items on the agenda of interest, really. The first was discussing the report of the CQC local authority assessment. So there was a long discussion about that. So that CQC visit had taken place in February of 2025 and was published in August of this year. And the overall rating requires improvement. There were some positives. The CQC recognised the strong safeguarding across the organisation, the good advocacy and support for unpaid carers, and the strength-based approach to empower residents for independent living. But the significant areas for improvement were the equity and consistency of access across of Lancashire, work collaborating with other partners, the workforce in terms of reliance on agency costs, and the timeliness of assessments to reduce waiting lists. At that time, there were over 1,000 people waiting for a social care assessment. So, there have been actions as a result of this already. That the Health Scrutiny Board was told that Lancashire County Council have reduced by 50% the people who waited over 28 days for a Care Act assessment. That they have increased the permanent staff by 53 social workers and 14 occupational therapists. Now, there was a temporary contract given to 15, I think it was, occupational therapists last year, so I suspect that what they've done is continue to employ those same people. There's a cross-party oversight board being set up to meet quarterly and oversee the CQC action plan to see how it's progressing. So, I thought you might be interested in the finances of it. The 23-24 data, Lancashire County Council overspent £27 million over 2,220 million budget, and yet adult social care was underspent by £42 million. I found that quite surprising, given that adult social care is a big chunk of the spending for Lancashire County Council. So that was the first substantive item, and the second one was about NHS vascular services reconfiguration. And this was brought by Mr. Canty, who is the surgical director at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust, and a Dr. Curran representing the Lancashire and South Cumbria Integrated Care Board. So they were wanting to review the progress being made since the start of examining this service in 2018. And the question of the Health Scrutiny Board was to decide if it constitutes a significant change, and therefore it has to go out to public consultation and go through lots of different stages before it can be implemented. So just to give you the background to this, the current situation is for inpatient provision only of acute vascular services, Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust provides a service to Blackpool, to South Cumbria and to Wrightington, and of course all of Lancashire as well. Already the services are migrated from Blackburn and from Wigan and Wrightington into Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust. So this has already happened as part of this vascular review. The change that would be happening here is the East Lancashire residents can currently go into Royal Blackburn Hospital. So Blackburn with Darwen, East Lancs, would have a more local service than the proposal, which would be everyone would go to Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust. So the reason that this is a problem for Royal Blackburn Hospital is that there was a national programme called Getting It Right First Time in the NHS, which was taking place in 2018. And there was a national network model for vascular surgery. So the population size that the Royal Blackburn Hospital is serving is not meeting the clinical requirements. So the ideal situation is at least 800,000 people to be served by an acute vascular service. The idea being that in order to be good at doing these very complex surgeries, you've got to be doing them frequently. If it's less frequent, then people's skills don't tend to be optimum. So East Lancs Hospital Trust only serves 550,000, so it's quite a long way short of what is deemed to be ideal. So there is a predicted increase in demand for acute vascular surgery, but this has to be because of the ageing population, but this has been offset by, in some degree, by reduction in aortic aneurysmal disease. You may have seen the screening programme that's been offered to men for abdominal aortic aneurysm. And the preventative measures, simple things like controlling blood pressure and smoking and so on and so forth. So the proposal was for a single hub for arterial surgery and complex endovascular interventions. So basically, if someone's got critical ischemia, so the risk of losing a limb or worse, there would be a single hub for that sort of surgery, serving a wide area, not just Lancashire, but as I say, to some extent Wigan and Leigh, areas that are beyond the Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust service at the moment. The idea then is that you'd have a single hub that would, pre and post procedure, would be delivered at the local network hospitals. So the investigations, the outpatients, the run-up and the post-op, a lot of that surgery would still stay with the hospital local to the patient. The point of this is that it would bring parity of care across Lancashire and South Cumbria. It would bring greater resilience of the workforce. Having a single specialist area will bring expert services together. So a predicted 95% of vascular activity would still take place at the hospital local to the resident, rather than having to go over to Preston for everything, because if you live up in Barrow, that's a long trek. So there was a long discussion about this and about what it would mean, and the vote was taken by the members of the Health Scrutiny Committee. Of course, I'm a non-voting member, I'm a co-opted member. That decision was made that it was a significant change, and therefore it needs to go out to public consultation. If you remember the process of our Health Our Care that we had in Chorley some years ago, this is a similar sort of thing. I guess it's going to be a public consultation, draw up a shortlist, blah, blah, blah. I got the feeling that the presenters were quite disappointed by that, because I think they already were well ahead with their plans and were hoping that this would be rubber stamped and they could get on with it. And given the fact that we've been told that the population of East Lancs is not sufficient to maintain these skills, and we know there's a shortage of interventional radiologists, for instance, who do a lot of this work, it seems to make a lot of sense to relocate them all at the same place. So, so that was the decision on that one. So, is there anybody like to ask any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
Thanks. I know, I mean, people are aware at the moment of the planned closures of care homes and day centres, and the one that's causing a lot of upset in Adlington is Grove House in the Adlington-Anderton area. And I know it's being discussed at the next Health Scrutiny, but the public consultation's going on now. Surely that should have gone first. People are seeing it as a fait accompli. We've got lots of people upset. They don't know what's going to happen to their parents. You know, they say they're going to go, they want them back in the community. A lot of these people have sold their houses to pay for care. And they don't know, it's all up in the air. They don't know what's going to happen, what's going on or anything. So a bit of clarity would have been good, and it would have. And they only found out kind of a couple of weeks ago, really. I think some have had letters, but nobody's talked to them, from my understanding. And I have another question about something else.
Oops, shall I take that one first? Yeah. So it's interesting you should say that, because according to the CQC report, which, as I say, came out in August and the work was done in February, I'll quote, this is about the care of residential and day case. There was ongoing commissioning activity to ensure the right size provision across service types and locations. Commissioners spoke of a drive for long-term stability and transformation over 5 years by building on existing provision and partner relationships rather than quick fixes. For example, the local authority was reviewing its in-house residential and day case services to ensure the right amount and right type of provision in the right locations. This had identified a lack of specialist services such as dementia care and an oversupply of residential care. So this review of in-house provision, which is what you're talking about here at Grove House, I think Grove House, does that provide both inpatient and day case services?
They have 4 units at Grove House, 3 of which are for dementia care patients. they take people in, from what I understand it, who need some respite hospital and things like that. So it is, and there isn't anywhere else in the area. So that about providing, if they take that away, I don't know where the nearest.
I hear where you're
Place.
coming from, and I think you've highlighted that an awful lot of people are concerned about this. So not just here locally, Grove House is the nearest one to Chorley, but there are, I think it's 12, is it? Six residential, 6 daycare across the...
There's a number and daycare centres as well.
Yeah. But there isn't daycare at Grove House, is there not? No. Okay. So I guess the question is, if they're new in August, why has it not been discussed previously at Health Scrutiny? And I can't answer that question because I don't know who decides what is brought up before Health Scrutiny and who isn't.
Can I? And it's interesting that the first report that we got, it was the state of the building that was the concern. So Kim, myself, and the county councillor went to visit the building eventually, and you're expecting, you know, leaks, buckets, ceilings, nothing. But need a bit of paint in certain areas. So when we highlighted that, then they've changed it now. Oh, it was something that the report had said, and that. So they're changing the goalposts all the time, and it's very worrying for those people who have relatives in there.
I guess it's a consultation rather than a decision, but I think your implication is that there may already have been...
There's a timeline of what's going to happen, which makes me very suspicious, and all the residents that know about it, very suspicious.
Well, I would imagine across the other parts of Lancashire served by a local Lancashire County Council social services department like Grove House, so I'm sure they'll all be extremely concerned as you are. But if I hear anything more on that subject, I will be reporting back.
That would be appreciated. Another question on something else. We're suffering in Adlington, being so very in the south end of the borough, but a lot of people now, if they need a blood test, have to travel to their local place, Fulwood. If you're not well, if you're elderly, if you don't drive, it's almost impossible to get to Fulwood for a blood test. You drive past the hospital, we have a clinic that's just down the road, and you have to go to Fulwood. Doesn't make sense, and people are saying why.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And you'll be glad to know I asked that question by email from Dr. Sakthi Karunanithy, who is the Director of Public Health for Lancashire. And I don't think he was aware of it either. So, as I understand it, the phlebotomy service that ran from GP premises is provided by Lancashire Care Foundation Trust, and for whatever reason, that service was discontinued. So then practices were left with how you're going to pick up the workload. And I think different practices have done different things. Some practices have trained up a member of staff to become a phlebotomist and take on that workload. I know my GP colleagues are not happy because, in effect, it is a cost that's previously been a cost to community services under the Lancashire Care Foundation Trust is now directly diverted, and that becomes their costs, bearing in mind that GPs are self-employed and are reliant upon their profit to run their practice. So it's actually a financial hit to GPs. So whichever process they decide to go, that unit that you mentioned there, June, at Fulwood, is a community hub, quite close to Royal Preston Hospital, isn't it? I wouldn't consider that to be community to Adlington. I've actually been in that building myself, and I think there were 4 phlebotomy little rooms. And interestingly, the sign said only for emergency GP bloods, not for routine bloods. So it begs the question whether some GPs are sending all their blood tests as emergency tests so that people can go to Fulwood, rather than take the action themselves of offering a different service.
Well, I know our GP practice, because I spoke to the nurse when I was there, have their own phlebotomists. But if you're under the specialist and the specialist says you have to have a blood test, the GP surgery won't do it, then they have to go to forward. And another service that's going the same way is podiatry, because I had an appointment for an annual check, diabetic foot check, dietary, had all in place. Then all of a sudden it's pulled. I went into the surgery. She said, "We don't really know ourselves what's happening."
Thank you. Well, once again, that's another service provided by Lancashire Care Foundation Trust. Now, the difficulty is that you may or may not be aware that Lancashire and South Cumbria ICB have been told they must reduce their running costs by 47% this year, and they hold the contracts to all the individual trusts to provide individual services. So how do you reduce those costs? I can only assume that in turn all the trusts' amount of money for the year has been hit, and so then they will have to have those discussions within their boards about how they adapt to ever-dwindling income. So I'm afraid that seems to be, both podiatry and phlebotomy seem to be somewhat.
But it's a false economy in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Because people will just not go to get the foot check, which you've got to have when you're diabetic. So there's all these issues. They will not go to Fulwood for a blood test because they can't get there. You know, it's just crazy.
Do we have any new questions for Councillor France, or anything that can't wait or be directed to her directly? No? Oh, Councillor?
Just touching, I know Margaret's one of probably the most experienced members of Health Scrutiny, and the forthcoming the forthcoming meeting on the 5th of November, where some of those consultation proposals will be coming forward. I wonder if Margaret could make representations on behalf of, in her role, regarding how disappointing it was that the Director of Adult Social Care informed us that a district councillor from Chorley Council had no business visiting a local care home that was part of this consultation. And my second question is, my understanding that there's been some market position statements that have done regarding dementia provision in central Lancashire, and it says that in central Lancashire and parts of Chorley, particularly in the rural areas, there's an undersupply of dementia provision. And you could probably just say yeah or no to that, but would Margaret take those comments forward to say why a home that provides dementia provision for people is being considered in this priority list for potential closure? Thanks.
I'd be happy to take that forward. Bear in mind I'm reliant upon the chair for allowing me to ask questions, and I'm not in a position to vote on any of these issues, but merely to ask questions or continue the debate. But as I see it, every single one of these is up for review. So Grove House has not been taken out of context. This is widely across the lot.
It's just 10 facilities that have been put forward out of they are reviewing the wider assets that they have, but there are 10 that are up for some serious reconfiguration or potential closure. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. I'd like to see your evidence on that, to see exactly what's been said by who. Okay.
I'm sure you can supply Councillor France with loads of items. Councillor Bradley.
I don't know if I can chip in on this, but I think Margaret also serves on behalf of the district councils on the South and Central Lancashire Health and Wellbeing Board. Yeah. So I think she can take it to that body as well, because it covers a bigger area, going back to the borders issue than just Chorley. So I think it would be ideal if Margaret took it to that body as well.
Thank you for that. Any further questions for Councillor France? Okay. So, just a minute. Okay, so item 6. This is one of the spotlight reports that we sort of introduced this year, and it's called Procurement Strategy, Including Social Value. Councillor Bradley will present it, and we also have one of our officers, Taz, to assist with any questions that come along that Councillor Bradley can't do. Thanks.
Thank goodness for that, Chair. Right, so this is actually, I'm standing in for Councillor Wilson on this, but obviously we discussed this at Cabinet, etc. So just to give you a bit of background to this, why are we doing this joint procurement strategy and the associated social value policy review? It's to be compliant with the government's change in legislation. The Procurement Act 2023 brought this new obligation in for authorities to have regard to the National Procurement Policy Statement, etc. And therefore we have to do it, but it's also the right thing to do, because what it does do is sets out our strategy as two councils, both Chorley and South Ribble, with the same strategy, as you can see from the appendix. It also outlines how we do procurement and how we do the associated social value benefits that come along with that, which we seek to get from suppliers and supply chain to enhance opportunities for local people to benefit from wider development and council procurement activities. It obviously outlines in the strategy about delivering best value and about being compliant and innovative and socially responsible, all those kind of things which you'd expect from a responsible council. And as you're aware, because many of you see these contracts come before the council, we apply a 15% weighting to contracts above £100,000 for that social value. Obviously, some of that is to give economic benefits to local businesses, so we try and link as much as we can to local businesses benefiting from what the council spends in Chorley, and we're still not quite there in my view on that, but this is partly a statement within the strategy to do that. And to include small SMEs, small businesses and third sector organisations who can again benefit from what the council procures. It's looking to improve our supplier diversity, and that we've got all kinds of organisations that provide us and South Ribble with services and therefore strengthens the local economy. But it also provides, through you, Chair, the social benefits that come alongside that, so equality, inclusion and fair employment practices, which again we try to enforce on our direct supply chain, but also into the wider downstream supply chain, to look to enhance the community cohesion and resilience by companies and people who are operating in our borough paying back and helping out local community groups, and also to help build that public trust in development and council spending. And some of the other benefits that are outlined are around environmental benefits, and again we have an environmental plan and the council's climate and environmental goals, and some of those social value and procurement outcomes are revolve around that as well, because we want to do the right thing by the wider country and the wider world. So basically what this is about us making that statement for what we're about, how we're going to deliver procurement going forward. It'll be reported monthly by the skills and investment team within the council and through the different directorates that it touches through that. So some of this will come through Councillor Murray's Communities Programme and obviously Councillor Wilson's, but also my own as the economic benefits kind of thing. And I think over the last year we've seen about £40,000 reinvested over into the local economy through the use of those local suppliers. We've had numerous hours of volunteer time from contractors doing things with local schools and colleges, etc., providing apprenticeships for local people who are out of work so they can get back into work, and some of our development schemes have been doing that very successfully. Engaging with schools and colleges again to give people work experience and insights into industry, etc., and also providing all kinds of one-off donations to people like Chorley Help the Homeless, etc., which I think we'll all appreciate is a good thing in our community. And as we go forward, particularly in the next year or so, when we start doing a lot of the town centre redevelopment work, we've got other sites that the council are bringing forward and developing, our new depot, etc., then this strategy helps us shape that procurement environment and that social value environment. And I'm happy to take questions on that, Chair.
Thanks very much. Has any councillors got any questions? Yeah, Councillor Brown?
Thank you for that comprehensive view of the report. It's absolutely the right thing to do. I do have a number of questions just in addition to that. Pardon? Really? So the first two are around £100,000, and what percentage of the overall total spend that represents? So how many contracts are we not putting through this by having a threshold of 100,000? And what are the plans for contracts under 100,000?
Not in that level of detail. It's more than you think, actually. I do know it's more than you think.
I wouldn't have the details in respect of all contracts above 100,000, but the aim is to try to ensure that obviously any contract that's over 100,000 has that 15% social value element added to it. In terms of any contracts under 100,000, there isn't a legal requirement to do that, and that's the reason why we're not obviously going down that route. However, obviously, we will try to work with local suppliers to try to build on that. And I think, obviously, Councillor Bradley mentioned a few sort of initiatives around that. So, yeah, I suppose it's a good news story that obviously we try to ensure that all contracts cover that 100%, 100,000. Any contracts over 100,000 have that 15% social value, but we just try to obviously ensure it's sort of a legal requirement and do it by that way.
And Taz will get us the numbers of contracts let over 100,000. Are you interested in number or value?
Percentage.
On number or value?
Both, really, because it depends what it is,
say
doesn't
that.
it? Well, I understand the legal argument around that and the why, but if we're really serious about the corporate objectives, it could be that 50% of the contract, and then we're missing a real opportunity to assure ourselves that we are using local suppliers where we can and actually really pushing that opportunity for those companies.
And we are doing that, but I think sometimes we have to accept that things like telephone networks, it's very hard to specify a local supplier, things like that. So there are some stuff you have to buy sort of globally, and therefore it's difficult to enforce that. You know, we are not going to enforce on the gas board how we buy our gas and what they do. But they do have some policies that try to echo ours as well, and therefore we will take that into account, even if we can't enforce it, as Taz says. But we'll get the numbers for you.
Yeah, we can still ensure that they've got, inclusion, diversity policies, etc., and what they're doing around other things that are mentioned in there, the legal side of it.
And again, while I'm not aware of the current numbers, I am aware that there's probably as many contracts, less than £100,000 picked up by the same people who are picking up larger contracts, and vice versa. So therefore, they're used to working with the council. The same rules apply as far as we're concerned. So therefore, they're on our framework because they comply with those, whether they're over 100,000 or not. So, and you'll be aware yourself as well that a lot of our smaller contracts are sort of advertised through the chest and places like that, which is local government procurement activity, and that again gives weight to a lot of these things that are in this policy.
Yeah,
So
I
it's not
actually
really
think for a
just
lot of the
going
under
buying
100k ones, it might be dead straightforward to say if they're through that procurement framework, that automatically it's going to meet this threshold for each of these. And what are we doing about the other? I don't think it's a huge thing. I think it just would be helpful to understand
It's
that.
surprisingly difficult to just go and get something from a local supplier off the shelf. You have to go through certain hoops, Taz, don't you?
Yeah. So the second part of the questions are related to single tender waivers and the underpinning governance around ensuring that we are following this strategy and the actions that we've got against here. And I know through the audit committee that we had a couple of contracts that had gone through on with single tender waivers because there was just not the time to do the contracting. So, and I know we talked about future improvements. I think it's helpful for the committee to understand that single tender waivers are not mentioned in here. So this is the right thing to do, but we don't have an action plan that actually says we want to address this as well, where we are not actually doing what we want to do.
So I suppose when it comes to obviously waivers, it's the exceptional circumstances that come into play. We obviously try to go down the route of open market engagement and ensuring that obviously that goes through an open tender. But there are going to be circumstances where we have to go down a direct award route, and in those, those are exceptional. Now, obviously, you're referring to some of the information that was provided to you in the audit and governance committees, and yes, we are trying to drive down the waiver, those waiver processes. But I suppose there are going to be instances where we are going to be utilising those waivers. Now, we are going to be obviously looking to use a contract management system, which is part and parcel of the actual finance system that we have, and I think that will help to drive down those sort of waivers so that we can actually contract manage.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. There will always be the exception to the rule, but if those exceptions are just because we ran out of time and we didn't know the contract was up for renewal, that's the bit we can do something about. So it would be really nice to see that hammered down, basically, to just to assure ourselves we're following this strategy. Thank you.
So we're actually working really closely with stakeholders to kind of drive that information, and it's a bit of a culture change, but also obviously it's working hand in hand with the contract management system as well, and we're hopeful that come April, things will change in the right direction.
And as my normal hat on, not Peter's hat on, my director's probably the worst for that, because it's construction orientated and development orientated, and in that world, if something changes and you have to get somebody in quickly, that's when you tend to have to look at waivers. We are doing significantly less waivers than we used to do. I think it was a culture that some parts of the council got into, and we look at every request for a waiver. I almost go, no, why are we doing this? We'll send it back. And usually it's already been three people doing that, probably and various other people saying that, why are we doing this? Sometimes, unfortunately, you need that specialist on that time, and that's exactly the scenario we're talking about. It certainly shouldn't be being done for, re-bidding of existing contracts or anything like that, because you're quite right, you've got the foresight to do that, haven't you? So, all right. Yeah, and why?
Okay. Any other questions on this spotlight? No? So if there's any questions that come out of reading it again, just if we could maybe share them with me and we can pass them through to whoever can answer the questions, and that way we can share the answers with everybody as well. That'd be good. Excellent. So if we does the report provide any comments or feedback? So I think we're noting that report rather than accepting it, because it's just information for us. But we're also, if there's any further questions, we're going to share around. So item 7 is another spotlight report. This is on events. This is taken a while to get to us, because it's always the wrong time of year that it seems to be requested, or it's just a little bit out for the flower show, or a little bit too close to the flower show. So it's come right now, and hopefully it should include this year's flower show and anything else that it wraps up on. And you doing this one as well, Councillor Bradley?
I am.
Good.
Different support crew this time, but
The different crew, but
teaming. That's all right.
far away.
I'm a bit disappointed with the crew's going, but we're fine. We'll carry on. Right. So so this is about a summary of where we are on the events programme. Members will be aware we run a lot of events, or we over the years we've run many events in Chorley. We're currently running about 12 events on average at the moment per year, attracting around 50,000 visitors, and we have a great reputation for events, so that's a good thing in my view. It's something we can demonstrate that we are doing, giving back to the people of Chorley as a council. It's not just all the emptying bins and business as usual. It's about doing things that people can enjoy and spend some valuable family time together. And I think what we've done is, as lots of events have started and got going, safe to say, like most things in life, you spend more than you intend at times because you want it to be the best thing you can do. So individual projects, individual events, budgets have varied. Some run very efficiently to budget and some have run over budget. That's the nature of doing things. You sometimes do too much and things don't work out exactly as you plan. So in 2024, we had quite a lot of spend on events, and we overspent our budget quite significantly. Over the last year, we've reined that back in, and it's actually resulted in the last year spending £80,000 less than we originally than we did the previous year. And we significantly dropped the budget on the flower show, and the idea is to increase the income on events, but also to control the spending better. And I think that's a fairly obvious way of making things fit within the budget. So I think it's safe to say that we are slightly over budget still, because with events you can always sell more tickets and you can always get more income coming in, but to cut your cloth you've got to make it attractive to people to want to come. So particularly if you are selling tickets like the flower show and the chargeable events, there are some events that are free which are going to cost money. You've got to have the offer there before you start to cut too much. But the most of the cost savings we have made was around some of the Christmas items. The Winter Wonderland was far more efficiently run this last year, and we have a plan to do it, even though we weren't planning to do it this year because of the delays on the town centre development. We are doing a fast prepared Winter Wonderland, which will again run far more in budget. We've ensured that money that we make off a 10k event or that covers the cost of the 10k event is being put through the people who run that for us, which is Falcourse Runners. We're getting sponsorship, increasing sponsorship, so things like Charlie Eats sponsoring the Christmas events and getting more sponsorship around the flower show, etc., has been a massive assistance. And I think there is more to be done for corporate sponsorship because people want to be associated with really good events, which people have a nice time at. Businesses will pay for that, so we need to make the most of that. We've reduced Taste of Chorley from 2 days to 1, which focuses that event more because it was a bit spread out and people weren't quite sure when it was on and when it wasn't on, and it was a bit unfocused, I think is probably the word to look at it. Things like, you know, some small ticketing price increases on things like the ice skating, which is still immensely popular at Christmas, has helped set that off. And we do incentive schemes with the operators to say if they make a profit, we get some of that profit back. I think that's only fair because they're making money out of Chorley, give some of it back and reinvest because that gets more people coming next year. And we've made lots of savings like that. I think the other thing to point out for this year, in terms of events that we've done a number of things where we've amalgamated events. So Picnic in the Park became a VE themed event, which did 2 things. We'll see this weekend we're doing, not this weekend, next weekend, Bonfire Night. Yeah, I'm there too early, Anna. It's Halloween next weekend. We're going to amalgamate Astley Illuminated with the Bonfire Night, mainly because we get an awful lot of people coming to the bonfire and then go very quickly. And it creates presses and congestion and all that. We want people to dwell a bit longer, spend a bit more money on the stalls and what have you, which gives a return to those traders in our town. So we're going to combine the two. It's an experiment, we'll see how it goes. And in particular, the flower show, there is a lot more work we think we can do around the flower show. This year was obviously very good. The weather helped. We had the driest, sunniest flower show we've ever had, and the numbers came up. So we've shown we can get the numbers there with the right circumstances. And we also did some different things and tribute to, I'm usually highly critical of everybody, as everybody knows in this room. Emma and the team have, since they've been generally in place, have looked at our events programme and said, this isn't working, how do we fix it? Other things we've not touched and just left as they were. So Chorley Live is very much as it has always been. Still very successful, doesn't need tinkering with massively, although we're going to have a debrief again about this year's operation. But there are some things that need that focus, and the flower show is probably one of those. And we're using budget that we can use, things like What's Your Story Chorley, some of the Winter Wonderland stuff. We can, because it's town centre based, we can also use some of the money that we've put into the town centre, Market Walk, UKSPF money that we're using for the town centre regeneration, can be put into some of those events as well, because they're bringing footfall into the town centre. And honest, we've got well over 1,000 Santas a week on Saturday, or 2 weeks on Saturday, walking through Chorley Town Centre. That is not just bringing those Santas into the town centre to walk up Rivington, it's bringing all their families to see them disappear off, all the rest of it. Anything like that is an event that's not a council event, it's a charity event, but it's bringing people into our town centre. We want them spending their money in our town centre with our traders. So is that an event? Is it something we do around an event, etc.? We can tag these things on. The 10K is really good for getting families into the town centre on a Sunday. And a lot of the traders, particularly hospitality traders, benefit from that massively. So sometimes the events aren't directly controlled by the council, but we benefit from it, and we liaise with those people to help make their events as easy as possible to run in Chorley, so they don't go somewhere else and do it in somewhere else. So just to pick up that, lots of things that were going on. I'll let Emma give some of the detail around exactly what we're trying to do. But I think you're creating a policy, aren't we, for external events, to try and have some framework, a better framework about what we expect around fees and setting fees and licences and all that kind of thing. Because again, in the past, a bit like most things, our events have grown. Some of that's not been as focused as it should be. There are lots of other things we are looking at doing, and we are of interest. Lots of people asking, can they come and do their events in Chorley? But what we don't want to do is do 20 of 25 events badly. We'd rather do 12 or 15 really well, work within budget, fit to budget, but also deliver what the residents of Chorley want to see, which is generally a value for money, good experience at a family or a specific event day out, and then they take the reflected glory that people from outside Chorley are coming to Chorley, and it sells our town. I think that's about it really, and I wouldn't want to say, Chair, but happy to take questions, as I'm sure Emma is. Like anything I've not said.
Thank you very much. Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Chair. About the question, it's an observation, I suppose. We do a lot of events, and when you look at what other councils do and provide, it pales it. But I think we could work cleverer as well. Speaking with another hat on, with my friends of Astley Hall hat. So, no, hey, just watch it. No, sometimes we get asked to do things right at the last minute, and there are events that have been planned a while in advance, but then you come to other groups, will probably have the same, and we don't have enough time to actually contribute to that. And I think we could use other bodies a bit cleverer, if you would, to enhance our events.
So are you talking about the grotto in particular? Sorry. The grotto at Astley, is that just any? Just on the grotto, that's had to go, we've had a bit back and forth on that because there's been a delay on the West Wing work. So our plans we had have had to change, but I've managed to get it back in the hall, which is good. Totally agree with you. We've just employed a new Culture and Heritage Manager, Claire. I'm not sure if you've met with Claire yet. Okay, she's only been with us a couple of weeks. She's brilliant. I think you'll really like her.
We have a meeting next week.
Oh, good.
The second Saturday in the month. We always meet in the coach house. So if she's available, drop in.
Yeah, I will message her about that. But that's absolutely one of the things we want to improve, because I think we need to do the same with all the friends groups, with the tenants that we've got at Astley, and any other stakeholders. So yeah, it's definitely on the list of stuff to different area, but on the list.
Sometimes you ask, can we do it in costume? And you can't just do it like that. It's got to be who fits this and is that appropriate.
Through you, Chair, I think, and again, Emma's been in the council, 3 years now? 2 years.
Feels like 3.
I think it's that relentlessness of our events programme. You go from one to the next, and in a way you're focused on the next one you're doing, but you've got to have an eye that something's coming down the line. And if things get missed, even things like advertising the next event at this event, we've got a lot slicker on that. Yeah. We've got a lot slicker at realising that sometimes asking staff down the chain to focus on things that are 2 to 3 removes up the line needs a bit more strategic thinking. So it's about keeping that plate spinning slower while you're focusing on this fast spinning plate right in front of you. And I think that's been a challenge for lots of new staff coming to the council, but you have got in the groove a little bit lately. And that's evidenced by the fact that when you present to the town team, when you present into stakeholders, and that's mainly businesses, I'll be honest with you, June, but not much community groups, they're happier with how we do events now because they feel more involved. Now we need to roll that out to the friends groups as well.
Yeah, agreed. And we have got quite a few more staff in the team now. We've put people on to, so for example, we've got one officer who works on the flower show all year round, because what we were finding is people were working on an event, put that away, and then they work on the next one. So we're able to try and work on them side by side now.
Okay. Is there any more questions? Yeah.
It was just an observation. Can I thank Emma? Emma came to member support working group, and quite a lot of members, probably like 12, 18 months ago, said we don't have any opportunity to feedback after events or say what was well, what didn't go well. And I know you now send out the email, so I hope you do get some feedback.
We do, yeah. It's on the whole been really positive, but it's been really good doing that, actually.
Yeah. No, and thank you, because you did what you said. My other point was big shout out for JLS coming to the flower show as well.
That was a risky one, but it paid off.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
From all over.
Yeah. I know everybody I spoke to was like, oh, I'm going to see JLS.
Just hope there's the same number of the Christmas lights switch on for Richard Cole. Is it Richard Cole? The Reverend Richard Cole. Very different demographic.
Oh, but we should have known you'd look at famous people. I saw Robbie Williams last Friday. Not the real one. But he was fantastic. Just on the flower show, just in items 18, 19, 20 and 21. It does say out of 20 that this year's net spend is forecast to be approximately 43,000. What was the budget for this year? Because obviously the reporting is 24 and 23, but we've only got half of 25. So what was the...
I think that's for the flower show you're referring to.
Flower show, sorry.
Yeah, so the budget for the flower show, I think, is 73. And I think in the previous 2 years, it's been more like a £93,000 spend, but it's under budget at 43. So whilst we're still not at break even, and we know we've got plenty of work to do, then we have considerably reduced.
Okay, because obviously, I think quite a number of years ago, I think Councillor Wilson did make a little promise that it would be break even at some point.
Subject to weather.
Yeah, and we have had a fantastic year this year.
We're within
The
touching
best.
I think we're within touching distance next year to do it. Now,
Yeah.
there's a question there about, for all of us as a council, but also us particularly events and the team, is if you're looking at having a £5,000 overspend, for argument's sake, on the risk of selling tickets, do you cut something out of the budget and pare it down even more in terms of spend? Generally, our philosophy has been, and this is not being irresponsible, is let's give it a whirl, and if we're a bit short, at least you put a decent show on, rather than pare it right down where the people don't want to come. So that's generally been the view's been, make it good and people will come, and we'll balance the money up with we'll control the spend but get more people to come, and that's certainly been the focus. And also that sponsorship thing, because the sponsorship is guaranteed money whether it rains, snows or what have you. So we just need to get that balance right, and I think we're in touching distance of doing that.
Yeah.
And part of that is theming the flower show a little bit, because that way we can do different things in different years, so it's not exactly the same what you go back to each year. There's a different theme, and we can put a different slant, we can bring new attractions in on the theme. It won't be to everybody's taste, but at least you're not going to, I went to this last year, it's exactly the same as what I'm at this year. Something's different, and I think that's what we're seeing as an opportunity.
Yeah, it's this balancing act between the promise that it would be balanced budget, and whether it should be balanced budget, because that's one of the key events that we're known for. So I think it's just making that decision whether that's what you're aiming for, but you know that you never get there,
And what's that?
or whether you're still aiming for it at all, or whether you just decide that it's one of the key events and it's going to cost.
So we don't put any money in as advertising for Chorley. So if we, for argument's sake, are on the backdrop to the BBC weather on the night where we're advertising Chorley, and at the same week I'm doing a Chorley business event, everybody's going, I saw Chorley on the BBC last night or on ITV or whatever it is. That is worth an awful lot of advertising. We never put that money into the budget to say there's revenue that we would have spent doing something else. But back to that experience thing, I am amazed by the number of people I come across in Manchester, Liverpool at work who say, I was in Chorley last weekend, I was at this event or that event, it's great, isn't it? What a great place, I'll go back there. You can't put a value on that, it's almost impossible to do, but I think that brings in an awful lot of benefit to Chorley's economy, and I know that because people like Totally Locally tell us, and all the local traders tell us, and Malcolm, God bless his soul, used to tell us that, is don't stop doing it because they get people in their shops and in their businesses saying that to them as well. So I think we've just got to keep an eye on that, and I know there's an obsession with certain people to balance numbers, etc., but we've always thought, rather than cutting that, can we get a bit more money in there? And that's a balancing act, and we have a rows about that every year, don't we?
Yeah, that's what we did. But we definitely did that with the flower show this year. We didn't actually cut the spend at all, but we managed to get more for our money, I think. Like we reduced the size of the marquee slightly, but that enabled us to get a wooden floor in there, so it was much more pleasant to be in there, which meant we could have a tea dance in there, we could have a cafe in there, so it's just about spending the money in better ways, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's just maybe if council were to frame it slightly different, than it's not looking to make money on it. It's looking for it to be the key event of the year, or one of the top 1, 2 or 3, and the exposure, I think, and the people that you're bringing in, as long as you can sell all the other events at it as well, like we do this as well, and this also, if you're getting better at that, I think that's much improved.
If we made a surplus, we'd reinvest it in drainage around the pond, because we'd have more usable land, so we would. Not for it, we won't take into another budget and spend it on something else. In my view, we'd make it so we could do more next year, because that area of the pond is the area that floods us, because it's all the dredging from the pond over the years, and it's really hard. Same as we could monetize Chorley Live far more. We could make a fortune on Chorley Live, because we could sell tickets for 4 times the value. But that's not the ethos. The ethos of Chorley Live is local people demonstrating their skills to their families, friends, and people they know. It's a stage for them. It's a community thing, and therefore.
Yeah, I'm filling as many venues all at the same time on the same weekend.
And it's about that community thing. So you're not there to make money out of it. And certainly the people who organise it don't want to, because the musicians are there for the music and the events and all that kind of stuff. So you kill it by trying to make money out of it. So everything's not about money, unfortunately. Or fortunately, whichever way you look at it.
Okay, sorry, I've monopolised. Any more questions? Oh, Councillor, yeah.
Just thinking, the Winter Wonderland, it says point 29, looking at alternative events to the Winter Wonderland. I know last year I was doing something in Leyland and I said to a shopper, I said, oh, are you busy? And she said, no, everybody's in Chorley at the Winter
And you went, good.
Wonderland. But the thing is, it is a thing, and people bring in the kids, and you know. And, but I just wonder, are you? Is there, because we're on sort of near the end of October now, aren't we? Is there a plan to kind of take people with you communication-wise to say, this is what we're doing as an alternative as a result of these reasons? Is it this year or next year?
This year is as is.
Oh, right, so it'll be next year. Right. I was going to say, because it's a bit last minute.
No. Well, it was a bit last minute because the car park wasn't supposed to be available, but it is.
Yeah, it was supposed to be starting the work in September, October, but because of various things, it slid after Christmas, so there's no point damaging our town centre by taking that parking out. And as a result, we're doing the Winter Wonderland because there's space to do it. Next year, I think what we're thinking is there more stuff we can do that's street-based to take advantage of some of the places like Fazakerley Street where you've got quite a lot of space, Chapel Street, aren't we? Yeah. And use that space more effectively. It'd be something something different. So at the moment, I think we have a certain thing that works, but try something different that people might like it for a change, even if it goes back the year after back to something more typical. Because we'll have a nice big event space across the road then, won't we?
Okay. Oh, Councillor Beach.
Apologies for the voice. I would just ask you to liaise with the trade, in particular the taxis, because the Ferris wheel last year did cause the taxi ranks some issues on that, and I chaired the liaison panel that we meet with the trade, and that's one of their gripes, that nobody seems to talk to them when we put these events on. It affects their rank, so if I can ask, just going forward, can you be mindful and work with them?
I am. I'm getting away to me tonight, Chair. Right, so the Corporate Peer Action Plan, again, we've discussed this at various meetings, so this is a repeat thing coming back really. But obviously we have the Corporate Peer Challenge that we got done in May this year. Enjoyed the session. I think people who everybody experienced it enjoyed it. It's always illuminating to have people from outside coming in and telling you what you're doing well as what you're doing badly, perhaps. So it was it's always an interesting session doing these things. It's the third one that I've experienced at Chorley Council, and everyone is done differently, but they're all very useful. It was reported back to Cabinet on the 10th of July this year, and it also went to scrutiny on the 24th of July as well. And on the back of that, there was an action plan put in place as requested. So the peers who reviewed us came up with a load of issues that they wanted us to look at further and thought we could benefit from or just investigate. That action plan was put together and came to Executive Cabinet on the 18th of September, and you've got a copy of that, so I'm not going to go into that in great detail. We can pick it up on the questions. And we're now sharing that for information as you requested. They're all on the council website now, because part of the peer review challenge that you get from the LGA is that you then post what you're going to do onto your own website, and they get a copy of it as well if they want to do anything with it. And they asked us to look particularly at the following things: shared services, to review the arrangements and evaluate successes and lessons learned, etc., around financial management and the presentation of budget papers, corporate governance, you'll be delighted to know, around particularly leisure and property companies, which we've already taken some actions on those, property and planning around the Civica property system, which is a new system we have for all our assets, and that asset management plan, and also about sort of future workforce specialisms and disposal of assets, etc., which might become interesting under LGR, but we'll discuss that. Strategic communications, it's a shame Emma's just gone, about the new communications strategy. Our corporate priorities about, whether we pick up some of those on big issues as opposed to just and look for residents' input rather than just deciding ourselves, which we are coming to next month's council meeting about. The Chorley and South Ribble Partnership, which Margaret sits on with myself and others do here, around how we get corporate priorities supported by that. Climate change, I think on every review I've seen recently, climate change is picked up, and then ONS training and ONS involvement. And I know there's big questions circulated by officers about as a survey for councillors to see what we think of ONS, because I got nagged by Councillor Ainsworth to fill mine in, which I did, and sent it back in. So, kind of ticking the box for that at least. So, that action plan's been overseen by the senior management team, and we need to go back eventually to the LGA later this year or very early next year, and they're going to come back in February to do an updated review about what we've done. So we've published what we're going to do, we now have to do it, and they're going to come back and have a look at what we've done. And we are making good progress against all of the items that we've detailed, and you'll see those in the cabinet papers, you'll have seen those in, as I said before, with some of the things that we've already done around the leisure property limited company and the leisure company, the ecology officer's post, the common strategy being developed and brought to the council, and what we're doing with the Chorley and South Ribble Partnership, particularly around NEATs, which I know I've spoken to this group and before about, and we are currently developing, as part of the Chorley Partnership, an economic partnership with business, because that's been a little bit neglected over recent years, and South Ribble's part of it is more effective than the Chorley part of it. So that's a summary of where we're at. Happy to take questions, as I'm sure Caroline, who sat behind me, will as well.
Lovely. Okay, have we got any? Yeah, Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Action plan looks good. I know some of the dates have already passed, so I assume those are just all in train, and it's just a timing issue when we've already published it then on the website.
We've already published it, and it was published before some of those dates were passed. So you can see like corporate governance is October, those are things in September, but some of those have already been implemented as well. So we've published the whole plan, even if we've done the things when we've done it, I think, don't we? Yeah. So, yeah.
Councillor Beach?
Me again. So they're coming back to do the revisit in February.
Yeah.
Are they looking to speak to those of us that they met with when they came to do the initial visit, or not?
What's it here, Caroline? Join the hot seats in the front. They're not as bad as you think. I'll call you Taz for a bit.
Yeah, so just to sort of answer that question then, I think when they first came, it was a 3-day visit, and when they come back, it's only a 1-day visit, so there won't be the opportunity for them to speak with everyone. It'll probably be sort of key people related to the action plan, so we're going to sort of develop sort of the timetable of what that looks like later this year. So some of the same people will be involved, but because of the time constraints, there won't be as much opportunity. But if people want to feed in, we can look at doing that in other ways, like preparing like statements or questions in advance.
Just to advise, we don't get involved in setting who they talk to. The officers sort of take a random sample. Of course, you're not random. A sample of councillors of all different types and parties and what have you to talk to try to get, because there's no point preventing, this bit works and what have you. And it was quite interesting for me. The most interesting bit of the actual challenge is when you get, every day they do a bit of a debrief with you on a Teams meeting or what have you, and said, this is what we found out today. And you're almost like, it's like your school report, it's like going to parents' evening at school. This is the truth they're coming out, and it's always interesting what they picked up on that day, and some of the stuff you think they'd pick up on because you're aware of what they're going to go and look at. Or I say, where have you been talking to? And you think, oh, I know what's going to come now, it's going to be all about this. It's not, it's something completely different. And it's probably because they're talking to a more mixed group of councillors. Because I think sometimes, particularly when you're an executive member, you tend to get the same messaging all the time. And I think it's quite good to get a view of, well, there was a totally different issue that was brought up when I sat there with the councillors in front of us. And I think that's reflecting some of the actions, actually, because it's not stuff that we would have particularly brought up as an administration. But if that's what councillors want to look at, we've gone, yeah, fine. There was none of them we challenged back and said, no, don't put that in, or, whatever. I think Chris and the director sometimes went, exactly what are you trying to achieve? What's the point with that? I think there was some definition around that, but there was nothing that either the directors or we, myself, Peter, or the cabinet members said, why, don't look at that, you don't need to look at that, there's nothing to see there. If that's what you want to look at, that's what you want us to challenge us on, that's what we'll do. And I think that's the way you should approach it, because if you don't want to know the results, the news, don't ask the question and don't invite people in. So it's got to be open, and you can't ignore it because it's something that's come out of it. And you know, and the worst reviews, I have took part in a couple of reviews other places, and I think sometimes the members haven't wanted to hear the news you're giving them, and that's what's the point. You shouldn't have asked to do it then, should you? Just tick in a box. So I think that's the way to do it.
Any more questions on that issue? No? Right, thank you very much for the report, and obviously if you've got any comments, pass them over. So item 9 is the overview and scrutiny work programme to 2025-2026, pages 57 to 58. Members are asked to discuss and agree the proposed work programme for 25-26, including the new topics for task and finish scrutiny reviews. Have you got any questions from item 9? Yeah, Councillor Snake.
I sent you an email, it was just about I believe the empty properties task group recommendations is finally coming to Cabinet on the 27th of November, but it's not scheduled for a monitoring report, because I think you'll know, or Darren will know, I think we're supposed to get 3 monitoring reports out. So there should be at least, I would have thought there should have been at least 1 before the end of this electoral year, if that's the right phrase. And then another 2, 26, 27. I don't know what the gap is between them.
Yes, Chair. You can include it for your January meeting if you would find that helpful, and that would be your first monitoring report, wouldn't it, for that particular review? So hopefully that will deal with.
Is it going to be listed though as well? Because is it going to be listed to then make sure we have another 2? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. If you remember from the task group, you're looking at reverting to something you did a couple of years ago, where you actually kept track at every meeting around what stage that review was at, so that things didn't drop off the list. If that helps.
Yeah. Thank you.
So are we okay to pop that into January 20? Sorry, I'm on the wrong January there. It'd be January 26th, won't it? Rather than 25, because that's gone. Yeah.
Just for information, there was a proposal from the officers to drop the number of empty properties off the strategic measures sheet. Myself and Peter both resisted that and said leave it on, even though we're only slightly above the target, like 2 or 3 properties. We said it was important that that remained as a focus for the council. So that should reassure you that we're still taking it seriously.
Okay. So do you want to include that into January 26th? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, please, because it was 2023 when we finished.
So yeah. So 2023. Popped up. Okay. So are there any other items that you wanted within the next meeting dates? Why is it 20? Oh, right. Should that be 26? December.
It should be, yes.
That's 20. So that's 26. That's 26, which it is, and then
No, that's 25. That's 26.
so that's already gone.
No, that's coming up.
Right.
We're in 26.
Sorry. I can't do years. Yeah, 25. So where's this January one going then?
25. The January that's coming.
26.
Yes, 26.
So it's no wonder I get it wrong, isn't it? So do we have a meeting in January?
You do on the main committee, Chair.
Right. Okay. So that's 26, that one,
Yes.
not 25. Right. Sorry. Any other items? No? Okay. So if we can agree the work programme with the 25s and 26s is made correct, because I think there's a couple wrong there.
Apologies for that, Chair. Could I just mention, would the committee like another task group for the remainder of the municipal year? Some of the suggestions are included on the report. One is disability access, the other is community cohesion, and then the third one is activities for young people in the borough. You don't have to have a task group, but you have suggested it in the past.
Okay. Do we have a view, Councillor Beach?
Yeah, I'd like a task group on disability access. I've been a wheelchair user myself.
And I know that Councillor, yeah, asked as well. So there's two for that one, isn't it? Has anybody else got any opinions on from those three? Disability access, community cohesion, or activities for young people in the borough? Councillor Brown.
Not on those three, but I know in a previous meeting we talked about a potential task group around NEETs, given the current position that we are. And I do see that we've got an update coming to committee, I think, at the end of March. But I know in previous meetings, not in overview and scrutiny, but in other meetings, we have just discussed whether that's an area we would want to focus on through a task group.
Okay. So do you think that we could squeeze two in, or should we just limit ourselves to one? Do you want to make a choice of NEETs or disability access?
So I hate to lead ONS, but there's a lot of work going on around NEETs at the minute, and we'll run through for the next few months. It might be better to look at it once that's run through, because you might have some outputs to look at. I think at the moment it's a bit too soon to get outputs, so you won't know what's working. I would put it in
So
to follow on possibly, or do it start it towards the end of the year that can run into next year, because there's a heck of a lot of work going on in NEETs, but I think a lot of it's only happened in the last few months.
right, so pull it through maybe to the next
If you're looking for some sensible
year.
data, because your problem is you'll run this now and you'll be based on data that's out of date.
Yeah, that seems okay.
Oh, if we add that to the list then to maybe pull forward into the new year for ONS, we'll do the disability access then. Have we got any volunteers for that group? Councillor Beach? Yeah, Councillor Hedgesworth. Yeah, I think so. I think definitely. Okay, but if anybody has any other thoughts, just let Claire know. And are you volunteering there, or just next question? Oh, okay, just a sec. Claire, you offer out the task groups to everyone, don't you? Yeah, right. Okay, so we may well get a couple of interested people in the wider council membership. Councillor Brown?
It's just to recognise that on the review of the scrutiny task group, which is coming up next on the agenda, does make some recommendations about what ONS should review as well, in particular budgetary management and where that is. So I just was sort of on. I know that needs to go through its processes, etc. But it's just to recognise that there may be potential changes in the future if that gets approved.
Okay, brilliant. So we're okay with the work programme with the changes of the dates, the additional task group, and a couple of things for adding on to January and NEETs for later, maybe possibly April, May next year.
Can I make us just? It doesn't matter if it comes on in this year, but I know it's something that we've discussed in terms of. I didn't realise that Bernie manages 32. I think he said 32 of the like partner contracts. So citizens advice,
The groups we commission.
home start. There's a word for them that the stuff that we don't have to fund, but that we do because home start, Chorley Buddies, citizens advice. There's a list of them, and I just wonder whether or not that is something to look at in the future in terms of the outcomes that we're getting from it and stuff. And I know I've raised without getting into specifics, I know I've raised issues in the past regarding Chorley Buddies and stuff like that, and that they sometimes see places as a bit of a cash cow.
Yeah, it's about how much effort, money and time that we're putting in, and officer resource, which is money and time.
I know
to
he
the
has-
result that we're getting from it, that whether we could do something better, different, or ourselves.
I know he has said, and he won't, I don't think he might be saying that he doesn't have the capacity to go into the granular detail as to what, you know, he gets reports back from him, stuff like that. But, and that's great that we do that, don't get me wrong, but I just think it would be a good opportunity to find out what they do and if there's anything, like you said, if there's anything better or more they could be doing. Yeah.
So do we add that to the work programme carrying forward for next year then, and sort of force the hand of the committee for next year? Because if we don't, we end up with you starting from scratch and you don't have any subjects. Whereas if you've got subjects on your list, you can get cracking with the first 2 task groups there, because you've already got 2 on your list, which is needs and partner, what we're calling it, partner funded organisations.
Through you, Chair, I'll hate to dive in again. Most of those are procured schemes, aren't they? Procured packages, so it's a review of those. They call them community projects that Bev portfolio looks after. So it's community projects procured, locally procured community projects, I think it's called, something like that.
Okay.
But get the right wording for
I think
it.
Claire will probably know the right wording, or she'll at least be able to get it for us.
But they are procured, that's why Bernie manages them, he don't manage them hands-on, he just gets reports back because they have certain deliverables they have to deliver, and they report, part of the procurement is they report back on how much they've delivered themselves. There isn't really the function to do massive audit on it because it's a procured service, they either do it or they don't. And then obviously it's the outcomes that part of that is what have you done, what have you achieved, how many people have you engaged with, this and the other. Now, I understand the reasons why you want to look into certain areas of it, but that's the way it operates. That's why it's not overt management, it's just putting the reports together.
Okay. Right. Lovely. So we've got item 10, which is the final report of the review. Sorry, final report of the review of overview and scrutiny task and finish group. So it's pages 59 to 72, and Sarah, Councillor Ainsworth, sorry, is here to present that report, and we're here to listen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This committee identified the need to review the overview and scrutiny function as part of its work programme for 2024-2025, and the task and finish group commenced in December 2024. This review was particularly timely because several new members have joined the Council in May 2024. The new Chair of Overview and Scrutiny have been in post for 12 months, and during the review, and the Council participated in the Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge. The Scrutiny Review provided the opportunity to review the current overview and scrutiny function, its background and history, and identify areas for improvement. The task group was able to gather evidence from a range of sources, including the Leader of the Council, the Chief Executive, the Scrutiny Chair of several Borough Council, the Deputy Chief Executive of the Centre for Public Scrutiny, a self-evaluation focus workshop, and a survey for members and officers for their views on scrutiny. Recommendations on this report are on pages 68 to 70. I would like to thank all members involved with this task group and to officers who supported it. I'm happy to take any comments and any questions. Thank you.
Lovely. Seems weird that we've got questions, if we've got questions, because a lot of us were on it anyway. So, but is there any questions about the final report and the way it's been pulled together and the tasks that we've got on there? Councillor Snape.
I was just thinking when you mentioned earlier about the report, because normally when a task group concludes, it'll then go to the cabinet member to decide whether or not they take the recommendations. Does it go to yourself, or does it go to a cabinet, the respective cabinet member who makes?
I think it goes.
No.
Don't put it on me, Chair. It's not for you.
Where does it go, Kat?
Traditionally, it would go to cabinet, but scrutiny is independent, so it would be we would draw up an action plan now, present it to you next meeting, then you decide how to monitor it moving forward. But obviously, you would brief the cabinet because some of the actions are for them to engage with as well. So you perhaps would want a conversation with Councillor Bradley as well.
There we go. We have a plan. We're going to get an action plan. So is there any questions about the report or anything that might need to be reflected in the action plan? No? Excellent. Right, so what are we doing with this? So the committee welcomes the report and looks forward for it to be presented at, it says executive cabinet, but it's not, is it?
It's not.
No.
It's basically for you to agree tonight.
Right, we agree with that, don't we? Yeah. Lovely. So we'll look forward to also the action plan on the next meeting. So, action plan. Item 11 is updates from the task and finish groups. To receive an update from the Vice Chair of the Suicide, Bereavement and Prevention Task and Finish Group. Is that Councillor Beach? Yeah?
I'm reporting on behalf of the Vice Chair as he's not here tonight.
Okay.
The Executive Cabinet's response to the Suicide Prevention and Bereavement Task Group was formally presented at its meeting in September. I'm pleased to report that an action plan has been agreed to address each of the 12 recommendations, and excellent progress has been made so far. The action plan can be viewed via the link included in the committee's task group recommendation tracker. Further progress on the recommendations will be regularly monitored as part of the overview and scrutiny work programme for 2025-26, and the first monitoring report to this committee is scheduled for March 26. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Excellent. Do we have any questions for Councillor Beach on that one? No? So the committee notes the update and looks forward to the monitoring report updating members on progress as to implementing the recommendations. Okay. You said we could already see the monitoring report, didn't you? Yeah, so, yeah. So the committee notes the update and the monitoring report which is available, and any recommendation progress on that happens after that. So item 12 is recommendations tracker, the monitoring previous task and finish groups, which is pages 73 to 76. So the schedule is attached for members outlining the position as regards to the implementing the recommendations of the ONS task and finish groups since 2021. Okay, and members will note that a number of monitoring reports for the task and finish group recommendations are now scheduled to update the committee during this year. These monitoring reports will include a schedule updating members on progress with individual recommendations, which will then be added to the recommendations tracker for future meetings going forward. The recommendations tracker will become a standard item for the committee agenda and be continually updated. So the recommendation that we've got is that the committee notes the information and looks forward to the monitoring reports updating members on progress as to implementing the recommendations. So have you got any questions on this report and its makeup? Councillor Molyneux.
Thanks, Chair. Would it be useful to have on those, if any recommendations weren't taken up, to note those, perhaps or why? Because there's on the first one it actually said most of the actions were completed or closed. Well,
yeah,
it's a bit woolly.
Yeah.
And then the remaining actions, 5 of the 22, were scheduled to be reported. Well, were they or not? It doesn't tell us.
Okay, good point. Can we do that?
That's just on that one.
We can do that, apparently.
So just tighten it up a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if most could be 4 out of 5, or it could be, 10 out of 15. So.
Can I just come in, Chair?
Yeah.
I think it might have just been the way that I've written it, I'm afraid. So they have all been completed or closed according to the executive member. I do have some details from the lead officer, some further details on those particular recommendations. So if you'd like me to circulate that to the committee, then
yeah,
that'd be helpful.
Yeah, please. I suppose then, going forward for the ones that are not fully complete then, the recommendation by Councillor Molyneux still works, because there'll be some that are newer and fresher and they'll still be going through the process of being worked on. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think, sorry, just to follow on from that, when the monitoring report arrives to committee, there'll then be a schedule with all the recommendations, what stage they're at, whether they're completed, whether they're halfway, and what stage of progress they're at. And then that will become part of the tracker going forward. And then that will carry forward through to other monitoring reports as well.
That sounds better, doesn't it? Excellent. Okay, do we have any more suggestions or questions? No. So the committee notes all this information and looks forward to receiving it. Yeah? Okay, so item 13 is any urgent business, which I've not had any, so I'll close the meeting. Thanks very much all for your attending this long meeting.